CPC committee to order. First, I'd like to do a roll call. Starting on my left, we'll come around.
Sochi Leon.
Michael Savoy.
George Familet.
Jose Campos.
Sunny Youngson Park.
Okay, I think we have established a quorum. So our first order of business would be to approve the minutes from our meeting of May 18th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes.
And I second.
Okay, any additional comments from the board members? Are there any comments from the public? Okay, let's call for a vote.
George Familet,
Yes.
Jose Campos,
Yes.
Sochi Leon,
Yes.
Sunny Youngsun Park,
Yes.
and Michael Savoy.
Yes.
Okay, great. Our second item of business is discussion around evaluating the need to require tax-specific continuing education, I guess that's apropos based on our discussions earlier here today, for certified public accountants who perform tax services. We have Cindy Fuller from the licensing manager who's going to talk with us about this.
Thank you.
Cindy.
Good afternoon. The purpose of this agenda item is to provide the CBA the opportunity to discuss and evaluate continuing education, or CE, requirements specifically addressing whether there is a need to require specified CE related to tax services. Presently, the CBA requires licensees offering accounting and auditing, or A&A, services to complete specified CE in the areas of governmental auditing, A&A, and fraud. Periodically, the CBA evaluates CE requirements for licensees and has instituted new requirements such as increased exposure to ethics education, dedicated regulatory review, and yearly minimum CE requirements. Pages 2 and 3 of the agenda item detail the requirements implemented since 2010. The CBA CE requirements were established to ensure licensees possess a currency of knowledge and level of professional education throughout the entirety of their 2-year license renewal period. Presently, to renew in an active status, licensees must complete 80 hours of CE in specific subject areas. The CBA maintains 7 subject area requirements: the 50/50, ethics education, governmental auditing, accounting and auditing, fraud, regulatory review, and the 20 and 12 requirement. These subject areas are further outlined in the attachment. The purpose of the 50/50 requirement is to maintain or enhance the technical skills and knowledge of a licensee by requiring a licensee renewing in an active status to complete a minimum of 40 hours of CE, or 50% of the required CE, in technical subject areas. Due to a broad range of subject matter and to the specialized nature of taxation, the CBA addresses taxation as a technical subject area within the 50/50 requirement. To further assist the CBA in its discussion, staff researched 49 state boards of accountancy to determine if any required specified CE in the area of taxation. Staff found only 2 states, Delaware and Ohio, which require prescribed CE solely in taxation. If the CBA decides that licensees performing tax services should be subject to a determined amount of prescribed CE in taxation, staff will bring proposed regulatory language for CBA consideration at a future meeting. This concludes my presentation. I would now like to turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Okay. Questions from the committee?
No, other than that, I don't think we need to prescribe any further tax specifics for something like this.
I have a couple questions. One, maybe you could take, I thought there were about a half a dozen states, while not within the CPA requirements, there's specific requirements that tax practitioners have to maintain a certain amount of education. So it's not necessarily within this CPA designation, but in order to practice as a preparer in the state. That may be something to take a look at, just to add a little broader color to what states are doing, because I think what that may suggest is there's different alternatives in how this may be regulated or looked at. And so, and we maybe get comfort in terms of the public protection, or it may be better served with alternative regulations or legislation outside of this board if public concern around this issue is out there.
Of course.
You said that was in California? Or was
Not in
that
California. I
federal?
think there's.
Some states.
At some states. I think there's some regulations or things that you have to do, additional requirements as a tax practitioner. So, and so I think it's just a different way to deal with the public concerns. It's not a.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about 80 hours every 2 years. If you're doing only tax, what would you be taking your classes in? Right? So to prescribe it, I think is
No.
meaningless.
Okay. Any further questions? If not, then we will go on to the next item in the agenda. And we're going to take a discussion around possible actions to initiate rulemaking to amend California Code regulations for attest experience and experience forms. And Veronica Daniel, the licensing manager, will provide us some comments in this area.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members. This item is to provide an opportunity for the CBA to consider taking action to amend the Certificate of Attest Experience forms. Going forward, I will refer to them as the CAE forms, which are incorporated by reference in CBA Regulations, Section 12.5. Today's proposed amendments are aimed at clarifying the reporting of attest experience as it relates to applicants for CPA licensure. This will benefit the CBA's consumer protection mandate by ensuring that signers of the CAE forms are only reporting on qualifying attest hours and that only qualified applicants are granted a license to practice with the attest authority. The following attachments are included for ease of reference for this item. Attachments 1 and 2 are the CAE forms for public and non-public accounting with the proposed amendments in red, strike through, and underline. The reason for the two forms is due to the difference in the requirements for the second signer in public accounting versus non-public or private industry. Attachment 3 is CBA Regulation Section 12.5, also with the proposed amendments in the red, strike through, and underline. Attachment 4 is the AICPA State Standards for Accounting and Review Services, or SARS 21, Accounting and Review Services Committee, ARC, Section 70. At the November 2016 CBA meeting, the CBA directed the QC to review the CAE forms for any necessary revisions as it pertains to the AICPA SARS number 21, ARC Section 70 changes surrounding preparation engagements being identified as a non-attest function. The QC reviewed the CAE forms at its April 2017 meeting and identified Section 5 and 6 on the CAE forms as areas that could benefit from clarifying language that better aligns with the CBA's definition of attest services and specifically excludes preparation engagements from qualifying attest experience. For attachments 1 and 2, the highlighted Section 5 under qualifying experience, the QC is suggesting language to clarify that experience in the preparation of and reporting on full disclosure financial statements be as part of the audit or other attest services. It also suggests clarifying it does not include experience earned through the performance of preparation engagements in accordance with the provisions of the SARS. And it specifically omitted the Section 21 as the sections under SARS could change and over time and without us having to go and revise regulations for each amendment, we left it with SARS. This same clarifying language carries down to the area of Section 6 that summarizes the hours corresponding with Section 5. The QC also identified that it wishes to suggest a slight modification to the area of Section 6 that identifies hours of work performed corresponding with Sections 3 and 4. The QC indicated that while it was appropriate to have separate questions regarding the preparation of working papers and the preparation of written explanations, these tasks are often conducted concurrently. As a result, the corresponding hours reported for completing these two tasks would be more appropriately reported as one allotment of hours instead of two. With this in mind, the QC recommends changing Section 6 of the CAE to combine the reporting field for experience in these areas. As part of the proposed revisions to the CAE forms, staff have identified some minor and non-substantive changes to the Personal Information and Collection and Access Notice, which includes reference to the California Board of Accountancy as the CBA, as well as the CBA's new office address. Further, as the CAE forms are incorporated by reference in CBA Regulations Section 12.5, the proposed changes to the forms will necessitate a change to the revision dates and require initiation of the rulemaking process to effectuate such changes. If the CBA supports the proposed changes to the CAE forms, including CBA Regulations Section 12.5, staff recommend that the CBA make a motion to approve the proposed regulatory text in CBA Regulations Section 12.5, including the changes to the CAE forms which are incorporated by reference, direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review, and if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to turn it over.
Questions, comments from board members?
No questions. I'd move to approve staff's recommendation as laid out just right now and on page 3 of the document.
I second.
Okay. Additional comments?
One item, and I apologize to staff, I just didn't occur to me until I was just looking at it right now, but you probably need to change the social security number block to include ITIN, because applicants now can get a license without a social security number. They can supply an tax identification number in lieu of a social security number. So I just want to, I think that should be on the form, both forms as well, to reflect that change in the law to Business and Professions Code Section 30. So that it's a non-substantive change again, but just to be consistent with the law, because when these forms were adopted, that the law was you had to have a social security number. Then the law changed after that, and the form needs to be updated to reflect that. I apologize for forgetting that.
Of course, we'll be sure to include that, and if we can amend the
If the
motion to
committee's
that.
okay with that suggestion.
I would incorporate that into my
Thank
brief
you.
motion.
And we have a second?
And now I will second that.
Okay. Any comments from the public? Any further comments from the board? Okay, let's call for a vote.
Michael Savoy,
Yes.
Sunny Youngsun Park,
Yes?
Sochi Leon,
Yes.
Jose Campos.
Yes.
And George Family.
Yes. Any other public comments regarding any matters? The CPC committee? Okay, great.
Don't we have future agenda topics on there? Or? Well, I mean, the only other matter is I guess we'll have to figure out where the discussion we just had on legislative experience and CPE, and I'm guessing that's probably a future agenda point for this committee.
Okay, fair enough, okay. Note that, please. All right. CPC committee is adjourned.